Greetings, everyone. I'm Charles Coyle, and I'm going to talk with you for a few minutes about contemporary global issues like conflict and global security. Let's get started. Here are the areas we're going to get into today. We're going to start off talking about global tensions and conflicts, like what causes them and some specific examples. Getting a little darker, I'll tell you about mass extermination, focusing primarily on the act of genocide and where it's happening, as well as its causes and what's being done about it. Lastly, I'll tell you about how belligerents use terrorism as a tool for war and the use of private militias to carry out these atrocities. Now, this is something that is relevant, and most of these things I'm talking about happened in your lifetime, and one in particular is ongoing. Global tensions and conflicts don't start for just any reason. They've all got a cause. They could be due to ethnic or religious differences, like with the Israelis and Palestinians, or in Ireland. Territory disputes are also a cause, like the fight about who claims dominion over Kashmir. Nationalist differences also can cause conflict. Political ideologies have also been a reason for many internal conflicts, like in Cambodia with the Khmer Rouge. The first example of religious and/or ethnic differences is Israel and Palestine. The struggle for control of Jerusalem is important because all three major religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, have Jerusalem as a very important part of their historical narratives. In some cases, as with the Temple Mount, their respective holy sites are literally on top of each other. Neither Palestine nor Israel want to recognize each other as sovereign entities, so mutual recognition is also a very, very touchy subject. Palestinians don't support Israel's right to exist, and Israel doesn't want to give autonomy to a people that doesn't want to coexist with them, and doesn't renounce terrorism, and doesn't renounce incitement. As for water, in the Middle East, water can be scarce, and when there's conflict, if the water's on your side, it's yours. Now, Israel consumes most of the groundwater from two underground aquifers. Now, these aquifers, however, lie beneath Palestinian land. Religious and ethnic conflict in Europe has occurred most recently and historically in Northern Ireland with the Catholics and the Protestants. There's no greater example than in Northern Ireland, where the Irish nationalists who are Catholic believe that Ireland, all of Ireland, should be a nation independent from the United Kingdom. Now, the Unionists, who are mostly Protestant, favor the status of Ireland as a constituent nation of the United Kingdom. The Irish Republican Army is a guerrilla organization that fought for Irish independence during the Irish War for Independence in the 1920s. Since the split of the IRA in 1969, there have been a number of active groups that claim ties to the IRA, like the Continuity IRA. As you can see here, where my mouse is, CIRA is Continuity IRA, and it says still at war beneath here. Now, there are others like the Real IRA and the Official IRA and the Provisional IRA, and all of these groups are seen as terrorist organizations, and although each one claims to be the genuine, real, actual IRA, none of them recognizes each other's political legitimacy. Moving on to territory disputes, there's no better example than Kashmir. It's not just a one versus one sort of struggle. China, Pakistan, India, and even the people of Kashmir are disputing as to who should administer this region. Now, India claims that Kashmir is an integral part of India and should be the ones to administer it. Pakistan says that the people of Kashmir should determine their territorial status. China claims that the part it administers is part of Tibet, which is part of China, and so it's theirs. Now, dealing with water again, Kashmir is the source of many rivers and tributaries in the Indus River Basin. Now, Pakistan could be cut off from a main water supply if India withheld the flow, because the part that India administers is the origin point of those rivers. As for nationalist differences, the people of Taiwan or the Republic of China claim to be their own nation. The People's Republic of China currently claims Taiwan as their own. There isn't much violence in Taiwan's ongoing struggle for independence, but Taiwan is still otherwise known as the Republic of China, the predecessor to the People's Republic of China. That is within Taiwan. China gives Taiwan limited formal diplomatic relations, but does not recognize the legitimacy of the ROC. For example, this passport picture, if you were to use this, you couldn't use this to get to China from the Republic of China or Taiwan. They have a special pass. And only 23 countries currently recognize Taiwan officially, but de facto relations are kept by virtually all the rest, including the United States. The United States can't really recognize Taiwan officially because China holds way too much of our debt, and I don't think they'd be very pleased with that. All right, moving on to mass extermination, or genocide more specifically, is usually something that accompanies a conflict or struggle, but it's far more personal in nature. It involves the systematic destruction of a specific group based on race, ethnicity, religion, or nationalism. Bosnia, Cambodia, Darfur, and Rwanda are just a few of the places where this has been occurring recently. In Cambodia, an attempt to establish a completely agrarian, self-sufficient communist society, the Khmer Rouge, or Red Khmer, as the followers of the ideology are called, they systematically eliminated all elitists, teachers and doctors, anyone with any kind of education, so that they just had farmers and basically people to keep under their thumb. In Rwanda, ethnic and power struggles were the cause of their genocide. The Rwandan Civil War was fought between two groups, the Hutu and the Tutsi. Tutsi rebels completed the assassination of the Hutu president, Juvenal Habyarimana. This prompted the Hutu government to engage in the killing of 800,000 Tutsi and peaceful Hutus. In Bosnia, it began as a struggle for territorial control between Bosnian Serbs and Bosnian Muslims. And in order to get that control, Bosnian Serbs killed Bosnian Muslims, the Bosniaks. This all occurred in 1994 during the Bosnian War. In Darfur, this is an ongoing conflict, mind you. Arab Muslim Sudanese are seeking out and killing black African Sudanese as part of an ethnic cleansing campaign because the Arab Muslim Sudanese view themselves as superior. Now, what's being done to address the problem? United Nations deployment mostly, where peace building is done. Peacemaking and peacekeeping are a part of peace building. Now, peace building is the various activities and things that go into resolving conflict between combatants. Peacemaking is third-party installation of strategies and measures to achieve peace. And peacekeeping is the third-party peace maintenance of that peacemaking, where intervention occurs when peace is compromised. Democratization is generally what happens when peace is achieved, as in the Republic of Ireland after the Irish War for Independence. Now, international human rights, there are various watchdog organizations, including the United Nations and Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, that monitor global goings-on to ensure everyone's human rights are being maintained. As for governments, our own U.S. government, they've imposed economic and legal sanctions, like the Darfur Peace and Accountability Act of 2006, which declares the official position by the U.S. government as genocide. The government sees this as genocide. It has also imposed economic sanctions and travel bans. They've declared official positions a number of times, other nations as well. The public, they see a lot of popular media exposure by celebrities like Matt Damon, George Clooney, Salma Hayek, and those have been ways of garnering awareness for the atrocities in Rwanda and Darfur specifically. There are also many YouTube videos devoted to raising awareness and many charitable organizations online and otherwise to helping solve the issues. Here I've provided you with some resources to look at. If you're interested in helping those suffering from the effects of war and genocide, there's the Genocide Intervention Network, the Institute for Genocide Awareness and Applied Research, and Save Darfur. All right, I've provided a clip here. Actually, the Israeli Defense Forces provided it via YouTube, and it shows the various weapons and tactics used by the Islamic terrorist group Hamas.
For the past 8 years, the number of Israeli civilians within the range of rocket terror has grown to approximately 1 million people living under a constant threat of over 10,000 rockets and mortars. In 2005, the Israel Defense Forces withdrew completely from every last millimeter of the Gaza Strip, giving the local population an opportunity to take their destiny into their own hands. Despite this, upwards of 7,940 rockets and mortars continued to be fired at Israel. In July 2007, Hamas took control over the Gaza Strip. In the year 2008 alone, 2,735 rockets and mortars were fired at Israel, leading the Israeli government to order the IDF to carry out Operation Cast Lead. This three-dimensional model is based on intelligence and other findings gathered in the field during Operation Castlet. It gives an example of the complex battlefield in which the IDF soldiers fought, and shows the way in which Hamas made use of the local uninvolved civilian population as human shields. For the past several years, the Hamas terror organization has been ruling the Gaza Strip, supported by Iran and Hezbollah. For this entire period, thousands of rockets and mortars have been fired at Israeli civilians. Hamas invests much money and efforts to build terror infrastructure in civilian areas and underground throughout the Gaza Strip. Hamas has developed sophisticated smuggling methods. For several years, Hamas has been digging tunnels under the Sinai-Gaza border in order to smuggle weapons, ammunition, and explosives all supplied by Iran. Hamas has camouflaged the openings of these tunnels under the guise of civilian housing, factories, greenhouses, and mosques. Tons of explosive materials, powerful explosive devices, rockets, RPGs, grenades, assault rifles, missiles, and anti-tank rockets have all been smuggled through these tunnels and stored in these civilian homes, mosques, schools, and hospitals. Hamas built its training camps and placed rocket launching sites, explosive devices, and snipers nearby medical centers, schools, and other public buildings to gain immunity while taking advantage of the local population as human shields. Hamas used the large open spaces in mosques in order to store weaponry in opposition to international law, and has in such a way turned these locations into battle zones. The use of women, the elderly, and children is built in the terror strategy of Hamas. Schools have been booby-trapped. The lives of children and youth have been placed in danger. Schools and educational institutes have been turned into rocket and mortar launching sites. In many instances, Hamas deliberately prevented the local population from leaving the areas of battle with the intention of using them as human shields, so as to prevent the IDF from hitting terror infrastructure. When an explosive device is detonated and the house is destroyed, Hamas puts the blame and responsibility on Israel for hitting civilians and property.
So as you can see, it's not just a strategy for, say, winning a battle. It's also a political move on their part, because they know that the IDF will not fire on civilians, so they use them as shields. And if they ever do happen to hit a civilian or down a civilian house with a family inside, they'll just put the blame right on the Israeli Defense Force, and that's how they succeed. Private militias are used by governments alone or as a supplemental fighting force to a regular army. In Darfur, the Janjaweed are the main counterinsurgency force used by the Sudanese government. They're comprised of Arab Sudanese in Darfur, targeting non-Arab insurgent groups. During the Rwandan genocide, the Hutu government formed militias called Interahamwe and Impuzamugambi to set out and eliminate Tutsi minority. In Cambodia during the 1970s, followers of the Communist Party of Kampuchea were known as the Khmer Rouge, or Red Khmers. Less of a militia and more like small cadres, they were authorized by their government to conduct killings in the name of social re-engineering, with the goal of complete self-sufficient agrarian society. I leave you with a quote from former Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire, the force commander for UNAMIR, which was the peacekeeping mission to Rwanda in 1994. Are all humans human, or are some humans more human than others? Do some actually count more than others?